Any further thoughts on the what we did last week? We did last week with the Dagab Levi Shiashkana.
Oh.
That one was going in my head all weekend. Yeah. I mean, I didn't get any new insights, but it was just, that was a very, very, very good pasuk and weighty. Yeah.
I can't imagine why it was in your head over the weekend.
Actually, it wasn't for that reason, interestingly enough. But yeah. Okay, so now we're up to 1815, and I have Mikros for you, but yeah, if you want, you can, whatever. So if you want, you can take it. If not, whatever. Okay, this is a doozy. You'll see why.
Okay.
Got it? Yudches Tesvav. Yeah. Lev Navon Yikne daas v'ozen chachamim tevakesh daas. How do you translate it?
The heart of the discerning acquires knowledge, and the ear of chachamim seeks knowledge.
Okay, good.
That was exhausted.
What was that?
Did I just translate exhausted differently in the first time?
No, I don't think you did.
Oh.
Yeah, right. So the heart of the discerning. This is going to be part of the question here. I know Art Scroll's a fan of translating binah as discerning. I like understanding better, but I guess we'll have to. Let's just say the heart of the Navon. Okay. And acquires knowledge, and the ear of the wise seeks knowledge. Okay, good. So translation is simple, right? Let me just check out. I preloaded Saadia Gaon and Targum here. I don't think the Mitzvah Sion says anything. If someone wants to check me on that, yeah. So Saadia Gaon says, "Lev hanavon yikne hadaas, v'ozne hachachamim tevakshena." Seems the same, right?
Yeah.
The only thing that's different is it says hadaas. I don't know what to read into that, but I feel comfortable ignoring it for now.
Also equalizes ears.
Yes, that's true, because we're not talking about Van Gogh. Ksuvim says liba de misbayin nikne yediasa v'udna dechakime tiv'e manda'a. Okay, fine. So the only thing he does weird here, he translates daas differently, right? Yeah, and I wouldn't begin to know where the. It looks like he translates. My guess, even though I'm not an Aramaic person, my guess is yediasa is the translation of yedia, whereas manda'a is the translation of daas. I have no clue what the difference is, but yeah. Okay, fine. So let's just delete the Targum and admit ignorance here. Okay, Art Scroll says
maybe like astuteness or something in the first one.
No clue. Yeah, Art Scroll translates it as an understanding heart will acquire knowledge. Oh, so that's interesting. So they translate Navon as an adjective, not the heart of the Navon, but a Navon heart. Yeah. I also don't know enough about grammar to be able to tell, like, if there's a way to actually discern what the actual translation is. An understanding heart will acquire knowledge, but the ear of the wise. Oh, I hate this translation. Check this out. An understanding heart will acquire knowledge, but the ear of the wise must seek wisdom.
Must seek wisdom.
I don't the must whatever, but wisdom. Like the Hebrew words are the same word. I know we just said that the Targum does that, but at least the Targum uses the same shoresh. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, knowledge and wisdom are like if you were to ask like anyone, those are like very different.
Right, and look, if
what things fall into the purview of knowledge versus wisdom, that's like a question, but like that's like universally accepted.
Yeah, right. And look, if the pasuk did not use the word chacham, I might, on a good day, be more open to translating daas as wisdom. But the pasuk itself uses chachamim and daas. So by translating them the same way, you're just losing that entire distinction. So I'm going to delete Art Scroll. Okay. Living Nach says, an insightful heart acquires knowledge, while the ears of the wise, and then in brackets, must seek knowledge. Okay, fine. That's not so much different than what we had. Other than, I guess this would be a good place to mention, by the way, that the future tense in Mishlei, and maybe even the present tense in Mishlei, could either be translated as will, like in the future, or does, or should. So it's kind of like, we have to keep that flexible. And then Alter says a discerning heart will get knowledge, and the ear of the wise will seek knowledge. Okay, I'm going to delete that because it's similar. Okay, good. So we can stick with our initial translation and tweak it as needed.
Can I ask you a question on the translation?
1 second, Ezra.
Yeah.
Navon is discerning. That's how you translate it. Yeah.
No, that's how
Yeah. That's how I'll translate it. Yeah. Ezra, what was your question?
Can I make that be medayik in the fact that Navon is singular and Chachamim is plural, and that's why they're translating it as Navon adjectively, whereas Chachamim is a wise person?
That's interesting. It's possible, but it's also, I've generally speaking learned to not be medayik in the fact that, well, okay, are you saying medayik from a, let's see, how can we say this? Just give me 1 second.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let me just point this out here. So this is not exactly your point, this is not going to speak to your point directly, but it is very common in Mishlei for one half of the pasuk to talk about someone in the singular and the second half to talk about in the plural. Like we've had that in Sadiq and Rasha'im. There are a lot of pasukim that have Sadiq and then Rasha'im, and I'll have to check and see if this is like a pattern of Navon and Chachamim. Like in other words, it could very well be that like the superlative, like of the two people, the one who's on the higher level, it refers to as singular, and then the one who's on the lower level, it refers to as plural. So that's one reason I'm not super keen on being medayik. Another reason is you notice that like in the second one, even though it says, even though it doesn't use an adjective, it does say the ear singular, which is maybe why Sadiq translated it as plural, because hopefully one person has more than one ear, but certainly many people has more than one ear, So like, I'll put the question down. I know you're not asking it as a question, you're asking it as like a reason for it. But why is Navon in singular and Chachamim in plural? And the other reason I really don't care as much is because, like, first of all, I think the symmetry of the pasuk works out better if it is Navon is a person and Chachamim are people.
Yeah.
Like it's talking about two different groups of people and how they relate to knowledge. Whereas if you said it's the understanding heart, so then you're eventually going to have to ask the question, well, who has an understanding heart? If it's the Chachamim, then it shouldn't describe them differently. And then who else would have an understanding heart? Well, either a Navon or a Mavin, So like you're going to get to the same place anyway.
Right.
That's why I don't care so much about it.
Okay. My second translation question is lave, sometimes I see translated as mind, sometimes heart. How do we choose heart here?
Because Isaac said it, but I also, I always consciously say mind and heart.
I haven't, that hasn't entered my.
Okay, yeah. And I think mind is definitely the default here because it's talking about knowledge, Yeah. So mind is better. And then I will point out though that in Mishlei, I don't know if this is true in Chumash, but like lave is often associated with tvuna specifically, or binah specifically. So let's say like a chasar lave is often, you have a navon and then a chasar lave. So like specifically, like you don't necessarily like say chasar lave with someone who's lacking chochmah, Okay, so what are the questions here? Yeah.
What's the opposite?
Okay, how are these opposites? Which is another way of saying what is the subject of the pasuk. Okay, good.
Well, I was reading that these two are two aspects of the same thing, and there's a hidden opposite.
Oh, that could be as well, but I guess the primary opposite is going to be there is one subject of the pasuk in which these two are the opposites. Yeah.
What's the difference between Kinyan and Bakisha?
Yeah, right. So what is the difference between Kone and Mavakesh?
What's the difference between leave and Ozen?
Yeah. Okay, that seems to be an important question, right? Why does it? Yeah, I guess so. So, what is the difference between leave and Ozen? And why does it associate each term with its person? If you know what I mean by that, meaning like why leave in the Navon and the Ozen and the Chachamim? Yeah.
The surface reading of this pasuk at least seems obvious. Like,
does it?
Yeah, I mean, well, the let's just say like the second half, like obviously Chachamim are seeking out knowledge. That's how they. It's like why they're Chachamim. So, like like on the surface at least, it seems like the sort of thing that you either like read it, nod, and then like move on.
Okay, so I guess then that forces us to ask another question, which is when it says, see, I was just already seeing past the surface level and just saying like, if it's saying Lev Navon is Yechne daas, Tavakesh daas, what does that imply about the Chachamim? What does that imply?
That they don't acquire it, they're still
That they don't acquire
seeking it.
daas, right? That they're only seeking daas. So the question is, so like that's the, so I mean, this is gonna be a major question here also. This is the central question. I mean, maybe you could like, arrange these questions differently. What is the difference between the way that the Navon relates to daas and the way that the Chachamim, hold on, I'm typing this bad. Chachamim relate to daas, and then the question is like, does this imply that the Chachamim seek but fail to acquire? Whereas I don't think you would ask that question for the Navon. I think it's clear that the Navon seeks and acquires. In other words, I think it's pretty clear from the pasuk. I don't think you can make a cogent argument that the Chachamim are on a higher level than the Navon in this pasuk. Right? If you're acquiring it, presumably you're seeking it.
Right. I mean, it could be on a like different but equal level.
They could be, yeah. They could be. I think the other reason I'm inclined this way is because, and maybe you can challenge this, but like Lev seems to be a much more core part of the person than Ozen. So the combination of both of them, like if I said, if I'm talking about any good, and I say what's better, to seek it or to acquire it, the implication is acquiring it, and then your mind relating to the knowledge or your ear relating to the knowledge. What's going to be better? So. And also, like in Mishlei, I happen to know that Navon is going to be a higher level because you see that in the Hakdama, for example, that Yishma Chacham v'Yosef lekach. So the Chacham hears and increases his knowledge. The Navon tachbulis yikne, and the Navon acquires strategies. And you see also, by the way, there it's kinyan and shmiya is the same pairing, right? So this is going to be like an important idea for chochmah and binah. Yeah, Isaac.
What is the Mishlei definition of Navon?
Yeah, that's going to be the question here. But what is a Navon in this context and a Chacham? What is a Chacham in this context? Yeah. I guess I'm going to pair that with a question, what is binah and what is chochmah? Side point, this is not really a question on the pasuk. It's more of a question on Hebrew language. So someone who has chochmah, we call a chacham. Someone who has binah, we call either a navon or a mavian. Someone who has daas,
called daas.
Right, you would think that, right? But there is no term. There's no term for a daas person.
Interesting.
I don't know why. Like, there's just no term for it. Not in biblical Hebrew, certainly.
What's the term for one who does chesed? Like, what is a chassid at least?
Yeah, chassid is someone who either does chesed or is defined by chesed.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, isn't that weird?
Yeah.
So like, I don't know if that like sheds light on what daas and chochmah and binah are. Also the fact that it's like, if you had a pasuk that described the chachamim's relationship to chochmah and a Navon's relationship to tevuna, you'd be like, oh, that makes total sense. But the fact that it's describing how both of them relate to knowledge makes me think that like knowledge is something that is much, much more like knowledge is like the material that they're working with, whereas chochmah and binah are like what they're using to engage with that,
Yeah, I was gonna say it a little bit differently.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought it out. But I was gonna say almost like that tevuna or chochmah can be like brought into the realm of daas.
Yeah.
Like daas is like more fundamental.
Yeah. I think the same way. Yeah. I'm going to read you something that's going to, is this all the questions? No, that's not all the questions yet, right? What else do we have to ask here?
Who's the audience?
Yeah, who is the audience of the pasuk? What is the practical application?
Is this true?
Yeah, is this true? Okay, I think that's pretty much the major questions here. So the reason why I say that this is a challenging pasuk is, so I was recently asked by Rabbi Weiss from Seattle, if I had ever done anything on the bracha of atachonin ladam daas, and so I mentioned to him, I said, like, I've tried it several times. It is an incredibly difficult bracha to figure out because you end up having to go into the question of what are these different terms referring to, and there's just no unanimous clear presentation, and he acknowledged that he's had similar difficulties. I want to read you the most difficult Rambam I've ever read, okay, really quickly, not to give us knowledge into this necessarily, whatever knowledge is, but just to show how like confusing it is. So this is the Rambam in Pirkei Avos, Mishnah, or Perek Gimel, Mishnah Yud Zayin, at least in this edition, which is the one of the im ein this, ein that. Im ein Torah, ein derech eretz, im ein derech eretz, ein Torah. Im ein chochmah, ein yira, im ein yira, ein chochmah. Im ein binah, ein daas, im ein daas, ein binah.
Wait, where is it?
In Avos 3:17. Okay, so and then it goes on, right? So here's what. So you notice it pairs daas and binah. Okay, yeah. And chochmah's not even in that. Chochmah and yira are paired together. Now I don't know how much you could read into that, but let me just read you this Rambam, and I'm going to try translating it. Okay, but you just like sit there and marvel at how absolutely perplexing this is. Okay. So he says, first of all, he introduces what the Mishnah means in general. So what it means in all these pairings is that each of these two things, both of them are beneficial. Each one is beneficial for the existence of the other and perfects it or completes it. So that's what it means in general. Okay. And he doesn't explain the other ones. Devarav b'daas uvabina hu inyan philosophim dak ma'od. So that's how he starts it off. He warns you that his words about daas and binah is a very subtle, nuanced philosophical matter. Vani azkirehu, and when I mention it, nishain al tvunas mishiyan bazeh ha'inyan. I'm going to rely on someone else who investigated this. So he's not even quoting his own opinion. I don't know who he's quoting, but he's saying I'm just going to rely on what someone else says.
So he's using the word in his
yeah. Oh, if that bothers you, just brace yourself in here, okay? Strap yourself in, okay? It says like this: the daas asher yagiel lanu, the daas which comes to us, or which we which reaches us, v'nikne oso, and which we acquire, amnam hasigenu hamuskalos asher nasigim. That refers to the concepts that we grasp, that we apprehend. Okay, that's what daas is. So far, so good. Im nafrid hatzura v'naskil osa. If we separate the form and comprehend it, okay, or conceptualize it. Okay, so that's like knowing something, right? Is understanding the form, right? That's clear. Okay. O shenasi gatzuros anifrados b'mitziusa mibli shenasimim anachnu daas. Or apprehending the forms that are separate in their existence without making them daas for us. Avalhim b'mitziusam daas, but they in their existence is daas. V'zos hahasaga, and this apprehension, hi asher tikare binah. That's what we call binah, okay? V'hu hadaas.
No.
And it is knowledge. Uvadas gamkin navin.
Oh my God.
And with knowledge, we also understand Efshar lanu shenasig ma shenasig, and it is possible for us to apprehend what we apprehend. Uki'ilu yomar, it's as if he's saying, Sh'im lo naskil muskal ein daas lanu, that if we don't comprehend a concept, then we don't have daas. In lo yihe daas lanu, if we don't have daas, lo naskil muskal, then we will not apprehend a concept. Ki b'daas nasigehu, because with daas we apprehend it. V'havanas davar zeh kasha ma'od. No kidding, right? Understanding this is very difficult. Even from the books that were written about it, mikan, all the more so from here. Now, I think from here he means Pirkei Avos, but we mean the Rambam. Okay. I'm just gonna like point you in that direction. So, like I remember distinctly, like in like 2004 or 2005 was when I first took up this question. And I asked for Pesach about this in the Beis Midrash, and he read this to me for the first time and just implanted itself in my mind as like, these are one of the Rambams that I just will come back to again and again and again, because this is where he says what the difference is between daas and tefuna, but I just don't understand it. And like, sometimes I get like little glimmers maybe, but the reason why I wanted to read this is to show you that like, and also you can rely on my testimony, but check it out for yourself. If you look at any of the Mefarshim on the fourth bracha of the Shemona Esrei, you will not find anything clear. Like you'll find lots and lots of opinions is what I'm saying. So I guess the disclaimer for this entire pasuk is that we're doing here is like, these terms are very difficult and they're also used in different ways. Like even, the Meiri warns us in the beginning of Mishlei, he says that when you see the terms chochmah and binah, daas, and other stuff like that in Mishlei, I made this point in my Monday night Mishlei here, but like these terms are used in a technical, like jargon sense, and they're also used generically. So here in our pasuk, I think it's fair to assume that they're not being used generically, because the whole point of the pasuk is to show the difference between a Navon and a Chacham. But like, it's just really difficult. Okay, so as tentative as all of our definitions in Mishlei are when we define like a fool and stuff like that, our definitions of chochmah and binah and daas, like keep those in your mind even more fluid than usual because it's like a really difficult area. That's the disclaimer for this pasuk. Now we can figure it out on our own. Yeah.
When you were reading the Rambam, I had like a feeling of like reading it really hard to reading on it because reading on it like does sometimes do that. Where he'll like be defining something like defining something and then like throw in it's like another thing and then
right.
Like
yeah, the difficulty here though is like the term he threw in is the very term that we're trying to find, like, and that daas is binah. Well, then why does he use two different things? Yeah. All right. So given that, now let's approach it fresh, right? So where's this is a good methodological principle, which I feel like we've done, but I've never explicitly said. Where's the foothold? Okay, like anytime you have a really confusing pasuk, it's a good idea to try to figure out, well, what can I actually put my foot on and like take a step from? Yeah.
So the fact, everything you're saying leads me to believe that what I'm saying is not possible. But the fact that
ignore me then.
Two variables
just
makes it very difficult because you're dealing with the lave of the Navon and the ozen of the Chacham, so and the Yikane and the Tavakish. Like it's very different on three levels.
Right.
So the move I mentally made was I equated the Navon and the Chacham.
Okay.
And said those are the same guy, and then you have a much easier pasuk to work with because how is this person? What are two ways that this same person can relate to daas via his lave or via his ozen?
Right. So you're gonna have to. Your reading is definitely possible. You're gonna have to pry it from my dead hands. In terms of my insistence that these are two different people. Like, I would need a compelling reason in a pasuk like this to say that. So yeah. I did see someone though. Hold on just a second though. I did see someone. You know what? I'm gonna show you, or not show you. I'm gonna read to you. This is a sneak peek for tonight because I don't know if we're gonna talk about this tonight. I just found, it's always nice when you find methodological principles that you've arrived at on your own and you see them spelled out explicitly. So the Ibn Kaspi says, "Ein ledaktek b'shinui halashon b'zeh sefer." Right? You shouldn't be medactic about like adjectives, right? Or not adjectives, synonyms. Kamosha kasavnu lifnim. Kihu derech tzachos b'melitza ha'ivris, because that's just the style in Hebrew poetry. Okay, so like you have what to rely on here. And the only question is like, at what point do you say that they are synonyms? And the reason I'll tell you the reason why I'm loath to say that, I'm using the word loath, like loath to say that, is because in Mishlei in the very beginning it does differentiate between the Chacham and the Navon. It differentiates many places throughout the Sefer. So like if it's talking about things that like I haven't seen precedent for are, let's say like Navon and Navon, there, even though there are Mefarshim who say that those are different personalities, I'm comfortable saying that those are synonyms unless I'm forced to see something different. But other places, Navon and Chacham, I'm just going to assume that they are that they're in common. Yeah, I'm sorry, that they're different. Yeah. So what's the foothold here? Where do we start?
Can you start from? Sorry.
Yeah, so go ahead.
Someone else is there. Okay, so I would start from ozen and lave.
Okay, I think that's one good foothold. Yeah.
For that, because the reason being, the function of an ear is very clearly only to hear sounds. It's not really to internalize.
Yeah.
Whereas a lave kind of expresses more of a meaning of understanding, at least on the surface level.
I like that. Yeah, good. Right. So ear is surface level and just receptive, but it doesn't, I mean, I don't know if it's what you meant, but like ozen, it doesn't imply what happens after you hear it, right? So it's not like it's like excluding internalization, I wouldn't say, but like it is only talking about the,
Exactly. Yeah.
That first level. And then lave does seem to be an internalized thing, whether you say it's heart or mind. So I think that's a good step. Yeah, Joe?
So,
Oh, sorry. Yeah, Isaac goes next. Yeah, Isaac.
So I have a different hold on.
Okay.
It might be a good question to think about. Like, why would Chachamim be seeking daas but not acquiring?
Yeah, that was what I was going to choose as the foothold. Also, I think Ezra's is good, but like, whatever daas is, we at least don't have to differentiate between. Like daas is the thing we're working with here, right? Like this, so we can make an assumption about daas and then say, well, what would cause a person to seek it but not acquire it? I think the only difficulty with that foothold is that it might demand that you define daas, whereas like Ezra's is, you can just think about ozen and lave, and we know what those are more than daas.
You can say it's because of the ozen as opposed to lave.
Say again?
You can say it's because he's only hearing it and not
right.
laving.
That's true. Laving it, yeah.
Right, and then you end up where Ezra.
Right. Yeah, Joe, what were you gonna say?
I was gonna build on what Ezra said.
Yeah.
And say that my understanding of daas is
understanding of daas, yeah.
is sort of like, I guess, experiential knowledge.
Okay.
Like knowledge that has like a deeper place in you than just pure conceptualization. It's actually like alive in you, so to speak.
Okay.
Which I think would go well with what Ezra's saying.
Yeah.
The lave is definitely much more in tune with that versus the ozen, which is just hearing conceptual ideas, but it's not like impacting you necessarily.
So this is an interesting methodological point as well, because when you're confronted with something like this, where like you have terms that need to be defined, so the question is like, do you attempt to derive it organically from the pasuk, or do you make recourse to other things right? So I think definitely it makes sense to err on the side of trying to get it organically from the pasuk. And if you can't do that, then applying other things that like plugging it in is a good move. And I don't know what we're going to be able to do here. So I think like that seems to be a possible approach. But I want to just give it our best effort to try to get stuff from the pasuk itself before we like posit that daas is a certain type of a specific type of knowledge that we're getting from elsewhere. Yeah, and I have heard that definition for daas before, like that you where is it? Hold on a second. I don't know if this is where they talk about it.
I think I've heard it from the concept that binah in Torah is daas. Because that's like experientially.
That's interesting.
Someone, yeah.
Yeah, the reason why that one's harder to say. Actually, no, that could work. Yeah. I guess because I was gonna say like that the term using the euphemism of daas for binah is borrowed from whatever your concept of daas is.
Right.
It's like it's hard to prove from that, but yeah, Isaac.
I have a potential explanation that is somewhat based on the gift of fire.
Okay.
One of the points that Richard Mitchell talks about is that
there's a difference between knowing and knowing about.
Yeah. He talks about a lot of different things.
Yeah.
Having to do with knowledge. But the only person who can really give you understanding is yourself.
Right.
Like you have to like reflect on something and think about it, and that's like the only way you can really have like an understanding. Have like a there's like certain things that like you're the only person who can you can like learn facts from someone else.
Yeah.
Like, in order to be able to like understand something, you have to think about it yourself.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what category of daas like that is, but maybe a chacham is like seeking out like hearing other people talk about their daas.
Yeah.
And he's really interested in hearing people about it. He's not reflecting on it himself.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the Navon is like his his lave is acquiring it.
Yeah.
Because he's reflecting on it.
Okay, so I was going to say something similar just for this first step, and I don't know if it's different though. But you tell me if this is the same as things what you're saying or not. So, Ozen Chachamim Tavakesh daas, like why would they have to seek it with their ear? Presumably because they can't get it on their own. If they could get it on their own, they wouldn't need to hear it from someone. Whereas, so what that does is it means that the Lev Navon Yichne daas, the implication there is on their own, not through shmiya from other people.
Oh, I don't know if that's necessarily true.
Okay.
Or the Navon also uses his ozen to get daas, but then is able to transform that just towards the lave. It could be that there's more happening behind the scene, but just fundamentally, his lave is kona.
That could be also right. Yeah.
Can I ask a methodological question on that?
Yeah.
Not on Joe's point, but on this point of yours.
Yeah.
That so I was trying to view these as opposites.
Yeah.
Should I not be doing that? Because
you should definitely try to be viewing it as opposites, because even so, like Isaac raised the question earlier when he said what is the opposite, and he was saying like usually you have like a chacham and a fool, and like sometimes the pasuk will only talk about foolishness, and you have to infer the chochmah side, and sometimes the other way. So even when that happens, like let's say like we are going to probably talk about a fool here, but within the pasuk, it is reasonable to assume that these two are opposites within some framework. You know?
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So for that reason, I rejected thinking that one of them, like Joe said, one of them leads to another.
Yeah,
like
me too. I think that's also like my
Tavakesh.
intuition came from. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And again, I like it's even after I said the thing about like not making recourse to external things, I am, because it's part of the intro to Mishlei, I am constantly thinking in this pasuk. It's hard not to think about his first statement about a Navon and a Chacham, that the Chacham hears and increases his knowledge, and the Navon acquires strategies. So again, that suggests this idea that the way the Chacham advances in knowledge is through hearing, and the way that the Navon, I mean, I guess you could say that like, you could say a different thing. And I don't think what you're saying is like contrary to this idea, because I'd say that the Navon also hears stuff, but then he's able to relate to it on a more intrinsic or superior level. Right. Yeah.
Two things. One, I think I realized what was bothering me about this explanation that I think is
which explanation?
Just about it being about Navon and Chacham as opposed to Navon and Chacham versus.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And I suppose this is like an implicit premise that I had that I think is not true, but I think it's worth spelling out.
Yeah.
I was like kind of assuming that the opposites are like a Mishlei hero and a Mishlei villain.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Good. Yeah.
Here, these are both like the Navon and the Chacham are both like heroes.
Yeah.
But like,
are those the opposites though?
No. No, he's spelling out a false premise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's worth noting that it's not like according to my understanding of this, it's not that there's heroes versus villains. It's just it makes sense that it's opposites in terms of a specific characteristic.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. The analogy that Rabbi Moskowitz always used to use is, he said that like, if I say hot, what would you automatically assume the opposite is? Cold, right? But if you saw a pasuk that said hot and warm, so then that could also be opposites. Let's say within, I don't know, like coffee or something like that, right? No, I mean, you have to say what the subject is, but like depending on the scope, you can have proximate opposites or like extreme opposites, and it's not always going to fall neatly into the good and bad category.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like Batman is the opposite of the Joker, but he's also the opposite of Robin.
It's interesting. It's interesting. I think I'm going to say Harvey Dent, but yeah. Yeah.
So for that reason, can we say that before saying that, I was thinking that it was definitely Kinyan versus Mevakesh for the opposites.
Yeah.
Because those are the only two that are really separate.
Yeah.
But now that you can have relative opposites, is it going back to the noun?
Well, I'm assuming it's both, simply because Navon is paired with Kinyan.
The character trait of the Navon and the character trait of
the Navon as an acquirer of knowledge is the opposite of the Chacham as a seeker of knowledge.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
So they're both the opposite of someone who hates knowledge, or
Yeah,
Oh,
I
yeah,
mean, the opposite of that could also be defined like more
Yeah.
relatively. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm saying they're not. I'm just saying to Ezra, they're not like categorically. Like Navon is categorically the opposite.
Right. It's not like this is its pairing. Like the
Yeah.
it's not like a color wheel or whatever. Where
Yeah.
I was gonna say though that hold on. Oh yeah, one other thing that I feel like so all these terms with chochmah, tuna, and daas, I mentioned there are lots and lots of there's lots of machlokas about it. The one thing we have going for us is that it is absolutely unanimous that when it comes to binah, there is a concept of mavin davar mitoch davar. Anytime you see anyone anytime you see any mafarshim defining binah, then they will quote mavin davar mitoch davar. Okay, now what that means, there could be different meanings of, but tuvuna, and this is kind of relates to what Isaac was saying in a way, that like there is an element of deriving or inferring or generating when it comes to the Navon, whereas that's not necessarily the case in other types of things.
Right. The Chacham here almost seems to me like the sponge in Pirkei Avos.
Yeah.
Like he's just absorbing everything.
Right.
But he's not. The one that the Mishnah says you want to be is like a sieve.
Right.
Where you're filtering stuff out.
Right. I say that's definitely true. I think one of the differences there is that's 4 categories of Talmidim.
Yeah.
So you're already in the framework of receiving knowledge.
Right.
But yeah, I hear the point.
Well, yeah, I mean, if we're saying that the Navon is just someone who takes in knowledge and then like internalizes it, as opposed to the Chacham who just takes in knowledge and doesn't internalize it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's your
So
approach,
we
right?
We could be talking in the framework of Talmidim.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So let me just articulate the two approaches that we're taking here. So Zev and Joe are saying Lave and Ozen are really opposites in terms of how far into you does it go? Does it just remain at ear level or does it go like to your heart? Right. And what Isaac and I are saying, I think, is in terms of the, you want to try putting it in categorical terms to like contrast it with this other approach? Because I think you and I are on the same like wavelength in terms of the way we're seeing the what categories being or what qualities being compared.
Yeah, I don't know how categorical this is.
Sure, that's fine.
That a Navon can and does determine daas for himself.
Yeah.
And like in a certain sense creates it.
Yes. Yeah.
Whereas Chacham is relying on what he hears from others because he is not.
Yeah. I was actually wondering, by the way, if you can translate yikne as create, because certainly in biblical in rabbinic Hebrew, kone is always buying, right?
Yeah.
But in biblical Hebrew, kone shemaim arts is to create. Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say that like in Shemon Esrei.
Yeah.
Konei HaKol, he acquires everything.
Right.
And he acquires it because he created it.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So I was thinking in similar terms here, and I'm going to just throw several possibilities out on the table here. And these are descriptive. I don't know which one's more accurate. That the Chacham is dependent for his learning, whereas the Navon is independent, in the sense that the Chacham has to rely on hearing to get his knowledge, whereas the Navon can generate or acquire it on his own. You could put it in terms of passive or active, but I think that's more descriptive. Yeah, what do you say?
Is the Navon, I'm saying the Navon is just like, I mean, I don't know if this makes sense. It's just like kind of like Descartes, like starting from first principles type thing, or?
I don't know if we have to go that far.
Okay.
Yeah. Let me give you another thing here, which is also from outside, which again is not advisable to do. But now that this is in line with my I also, when I was thinking about the pasuk, arrived at it in the same way that Isaac did, and then I thought of this thing here. So this is a Rashi on
through hearing you get fired.
No. What does that mean? Hold on. This is you want an All Torah fact? I forgot if I told you this already. It began with him wanting a critical edition of Rashi. and wanting to make it available for everyone. That's how the whole Al Torah project began. So like,
That's all Torah.
yeah. Okay, so this is on the pasuk in Dvarim 1:13. This is by Judges. Havelachem anashim chachamim unvonim v'yiduim l'shivtechem v'asimim b'roshechem. So chachamim and nevonim, right? So Rashi here on nevonim says nevinim davar mitoch davar, like I mentioned, right? That he understands one thing from another. He says zohi sheshal Arius es Rabbi Yossi. I don't know who Arius was. This is presumably a Roman. This is what Arius asked Rabbi Yossi. Ma bein chachamim l'nevonim. Okay, what is the difference between Chacham and Navonim? So then the answer given was Chacham dome l'shulchani ashir, kishemevin lo dinarin liros roe, kishein mevin yoshev v'tohe. So I guess shulchani here is like a money changer. So a Chacham is like a rich money changer, or I don't know if it's or a money changer for the rich. I'm not sure. That when they bring him coins to examine, then he examines them. But if they don't bring him, then he sits and does nothing. Navon dome l'shulchani tagar. A Navon is comparable to a merchant money changer. Kishemevin liros roy. When they bring it to him to see, he sees the coins. Kisheimevin, and when they don't bring it to him, humachazer maybe he goes out and brings them in. So that also is a similar thing where like they could both have knowledge. Like this guy is making money, the shulchani ashir, but when people don't bring him stuff, he can't do anything. So he's only working with what people bring him. Whereas the Navon is capable of working with what people bring him, but then he also, when he doesn't have anything, he goes out and gets it on his own, you know?
So isn't he the one who's Mavakesh daas?
Well, if you say that Mavakesh means like seeking and getting, then yeah, but I guess I'm learning it the other way around, that I'm learning Kone as seeking and getting, whereas like Chacham just seeks.
But he's not.
He's not seeking.
He is. The Chacham wants people to tell him chochmah.
Well, he's not actually going out to find it.
He's not going out to find it, yeah. Or he might be. He might be going to hear Chachamim, you know?
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Right.
But, and it's also the thing is remember, it's not just that, that's not the only distinction. It's the lave and the ozen. So like he's seeking with his ear. He's trying to hear Chachamim saying stuff because that's the only way he gets knowledge. The Navon's mind grasps, acquires or generates knowledge on its own, So like the acquisition principle in the Navon is in his mind. His mind allows him to acquire. The acquisition principle in the Chacham is his ear. So he has to hear it. I think there's also one thing in Rashi. I don't know if you did this with Rabbi Zimmer. Let's just do this one last thing, then we'll stop for today. In that first pasuk. So he says, so this is another, again, consistent with Rashi here. So on the pasuk, Yishma Chacham v'Yosef lekach v'Navon tach b'Lusi, he says, Chacham ze bal hashmua. Chacham is someone who has received knowledge. And Navon mosif al yedias chacham sheyodei lahavi davar mitoch davar umosif al shmuaso. So he knows how to understand one thing from another and to increase what he has heard. So again, I'm not saying, I think if you just had the pasuk, then the approach you guys are taking is viable, and like we can explore that tomorrow. I think I'm just at this point influenced so much by the Mevin midavar mitoch davar thing, and like all of these depictions of a chacham as receiving stuff and the Navon like generating stuff, that like I'm more drawn in that direction.
Yeah, I'm not totally clear on this.
Okay, so let's let it percolate, and then we'll come back to it tomorrow.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, guys. See you later.